Yeah, so I guess this is another Mr. Nobody video. I figure I'll give it a shot. I'm watching America, and the minority are sending police with weapons to force the majority to live under Christian law at gunpoint. This sounds like a systemic issue. I don't think expanding the court or a new law is going to really do much. So I thought we'd take a look at the system itself. As far as I understand it, we're supposed to live in a republic, which means there's a separation of powers. Let's see if we have a separation of powers. Then we're supposed to live under capitalism, which means we all have the same fair chance. We don't have the same portion, that would be socialism, but we gotta have a fair chance at getting the money. I think Mitch and Nancy's version of fair chance and ours are gonna be a little different. Democracy, this is two things. Majority rule, which we ain't, so already we know democracy's broken. But then you also have to be individually franchised, and I think that's where we're gonna look to see what our problems are. So here's what I think happened to our republic. I could be wrong about all this, but this is what it looks like to me. That's the Mitch and Nancy group, 535 people in Washington. See that? That down there is supposed to be Miami, that's New York, there's Chicago, and all the M states are over there. You know, Washington, Oregon, LA, Vegas, Phoenix, Scottsdale, Texas, all that stuff, yeah? So the 535 of these people tell us we live in a republic and we have a separation of powers. So if the executive branch was investigating the legislative branch and found over 100 provable charges, they wouldn't let them go because we would have a separation of powers. Here in America, Jim Comey thought about it. Like, he pondered the 330 million of us, which is his country, and he pondered the apparatus, and he chose the apparatus. That's nationalism. That's what fascism looks like. There's no promise to avoid. There's no checks and balances is when the executive branch finds 100 charges, they charge 100 charges. What Jim Comey did was let her go. Let's see. Mitch McConnell ceded the Senate part of the legislative branch to the executive with bringing bills to the floor. That's not a separation of powers. We have a problem here. It seems the word republic is broken. Here's what I think happened. Mitch and Nancy sold each subsystem we live under to its industry for money. Their job is the allocation of resources to govern for the public health, safety, and morals. Instead, they sold each system, like the gun system, to the gun industry. The gun industry designed the system not for our health and safety. That would be if we designed it. If industry designs it, they design it for profit, the opposite. The food system was sold to the food industry for profit. Health to health and oil to oil. That's the mechanism. Mitch and Nancy sold each subsystem to its industry. The industry wrote the words and paid Mitch and Nancy, the legislative branch, money to publish, that's where the money comes from, to publish industry written words at us. It made us industry governed and Mitch and Nancy a very profitable publishing house. The problem happens next. Sometimes things look like industry, but they ain't. Things like the military-industrial complex, or prisons, or teachers, or I don't know, something else, pick something else, cops. None of that is industry. All of those are agents of the government. When they took those words, when Mitch and Nancy took those words, like from Raytheon or Halliburton, those are not industry words. Those are government words. Cops and all that stuff, wrong branch of government. That's the executive branch. So how we ended up living, how we ended up living is the executive branch via its agents, like Halliburton or whoever, the cops or whatever. The executive branch been writing the words and paying our own legislative branch with our own tax dollars, what suckers we are, to publish executive branch written words at us. Then, wait, there's more. Then the actual executive, the president, has been signing executive branch written words into law at us. Since the executive branch has been both writing the words and signing them into law, that is not a republic. That consolidates the power of both branches underneath the executive branch. That resolves this republic as a matter of political science. In political science, a republic is such that the legislative branch is not responsible to the executive branch. Mitch and Nancy didn't protect our republic. They sold it for money, hundreds of millions of dollars of money. Money you could find in their very own Mitch and Nancy, public servant, hundreds of millions of dollars in them, accidentally, as a matter of chance and probability, governed into them, by them, and only them, out of 330 million people. Now let's take a look at capitalism and see, do we all have a fair chance? So, the Mitch and Nancy group, as you can see, are in DC. That's one group of 535 people. There's lots of groups of 535 people. They're everywhere. See all them groups? They're down in Florida, here in the M states. They're here, over here. There's a lot of ways to make groups of 535. Look at all those dots. We're not even close yet. So Mitch and Nancy want us to believe that they publish words over here, and these words turn into resources moving, and they move right into their Mitch and Nancy bank accounts as a matter of accident. This is the old accidental wealth accumulation trick. And then they're gonna make more words over here, and instead of going into any of these accounts, somehow it ends up right in their Mitch and Nancy bank accounts. See, look at that route. That was a good route. Then they publish some words over here, and somehow, as a matter of chance, and all having the same similar chance, ends up right into their Mitch and Nancy bank accounts. I don't think so. What I think is that there's 330 million of us, and there's 535 of them. That number right there is how many dots there are all over America. I know that's terrible, I'm sorry. That is a lot of dots. I do not think Mitch and Nancy capitalism to anything, anywhere. I think they intentionally governed our stuff into their Mitch and Nancy bank accounts, and the only people who could tell us can answer that question. What's 330 million choose 535? That is a number so large it would have over 3,000 digits, maybe over 4,000. So the question on the table is, how likely is it that we could rule out both accidental and incidental wealth accumulation from within the Capitol building? How did they con us into thinking they were accidentally governing our stuff into their bank accounts? So anyways, I think that makes this an F on Republic so far, an F on capitalism. We already know it's an F because we're in minority rule. So that's an F already. It's this individual franchising part I want to take a look at. Since nobody else will ask the question, I'll just ask my question here. This is how they're describing election day to me. 100 million individuals are individually franchising by visiting multiple pairs each of 435 plus X pairs of people. And at the end of the day, somehow, 9 times out of 10 almost, they're selecting the one what got more money than the other one in a who's a better candidate contest every 2 years. Okay, I mean, I'm down. If you guys could show me how that works, I'm in. As far as I remember, that couldn't happen in any contest. That couldn't happen in a singing contest or a jumping contest or a spelling bee. That couldn't even happen in a money contest. If all is said on the ballot was who got more money. And to parties, to names, the bank account balances, like in numbers, like literally right next to each other on the ballot. And Jennifer Garner herself, smiling at everybody, walking in the booth, reminding them who got more money, who got more money. I do not think 100 million individuals individually franchising could do that. So if they can, great, just please explain it. But if they can't, I'm asking the math question. How likely is it that we are going to the polls in groups, in discrete objects, and not individually franchising? So if it's not a democracy, what good would a new voting law do? None. If it's not capitalism, what good would a new bank law, or tax law, or insurance law do? None. If it's not a republic, what good would a new gun law do? None. We need to look at the system and count our way out of this mess, I think. I mean, I don't know. I'm just some idiot walking down the street. I don't know. I'm Mr. Nobody, and I'm asking a question. If they're not practicing capitalism, what economic system are Mitch and Nancy practicing? And if we're not going to do anything about it, I'm next. Mitch, who do I call to get my $300 million? This is ridiculous. This is the wealthiest land ever. Ever. These were systems designed by geniuses a couple thousand years ago to work where Moldova is. I mean, either Plato's a moron or we're getting robbed. There's only 535 people publishing the words of us, just 535 people. They published Article 1, Mitch and Nancy did it. Section 1, Mitch and Nancy did it. They published the words, Mitch and Nancy did it. They fund the words, Mitch and Nancy did it. They sold the words, Mitch and Nancy did it. They got the cash from the words, Mitch and Nancy did it. They need to come out of our Capitol building with their books up. I mean, they don't need to. I'm saying if we wanted to fix it, they should just, for the sake of the universe, the planet, the oil, the environment, all this stuff. Half the people thinks he's robbing, half the people think she's robbing. They're robbing and stealing without even rhyming. We should lock them up just for that. That's a crime all by itself. I'm Manhattan. That's the Beastie Boys. That's what we should do. Get the Beastie Boys, Eddie Vedder, Sheryl Crow, Curtis Blow, Blink 182, Run DMC, whoever, outside the Capitol building, sing Kumbaya until they come out with their books up. They make people go to fake wars to lose eyeballs and pinkies and legs and lives. They can show us their books And those who don't need their right to remain silent, to not go to prison, they should be allowed to be our government. But anybody who needs the right to remain silent about how they've been intentionally governing our stuff into their Mitch and Nancy bank accounts really shouldn't be in the Capitol building right now. So why don't we just find out who doesn't need their individual rights? Anybody in the Capitol building. If nobody needs Mitch and Nancy's permission to tell us you've never stolen from us, you didn't help the Clintons sell the Glass-Steagall Act, you didn't help the Cheneys make 2 fake wars in one day. If you never did anything like that, could you hashtag I'm not a criminal today, 535, or I don't need my rights today, 535. We need to separate the criminals from the non-criminals. So if we could get just 535 people to come out with their books up so everybody could breathe easier, that would be a big help. And if Letitia James would look at our 25-year-olds and pick, either tell them to go blow and maybe 30 years from now, they'll have a president they can flip, or tell them, don't worry kids, by the time you're 30, you'll be out of debt, properly educated, and on the way to good lives, wanting children, because I'm about to flip Donald Trump and walk over to the Department of Justice and close every case from Goldman Sachs, Mitch and Nancy on down. This is ridiculous. If we're not going to close those cases and let these Goldman Sachs and Halliburton and all these oil people just rob and steal from our 25-year-olds, and we got the president, we don't need revenge. And nobody's got a gripe, he's not locked up. This is ridiculous. Make these people come out of our Capitol building with their books up to prove what they said, capitalism. I don't believe a word of it. And flip Trump and close the cases. Save our 25-year-olds. I got kids, this is for them and for everybody else's. So anyways, those are my questions. How likely is it that we could rule out accidental and incidental wealth accumulation from within the Capitol building? How likely is it that we're going to the polls in groups and not individually franchised? All right, thank you very much. Have a nice day.